Good morning and welcome to day 13 of the Coronavirus Diaries of Geriatric 1944. Today I want to discuss the Eurovision Song Contest. I touched on this back on day 2 or 3, but before I get into that, just let me talk about the media coverage. There was actually quite a good BBC piece on this whole coronavirus madness done by Amol Rajan, the political editor, used to be editor of the Independent newspaper, which is not bad and does basically cover lots of the stuff that I've been saying as well as everybody else. But what he doesn't say, keeps saying, you can always check with the BBC, you can rely on the BBC. Well, what he doesn't do is mention the amount of times that the BBC influences things by the way they say and what they say. So they may be speaking the complete truth, but by emphasising it in a certain way, they're actually conning us, the viewer, because they want to make it a bigger and better story. So, for example, today I see that Spain now announces 10,000 coronavirus deaths in the 3 months of this year, January, February, March. Well, 10,000 coronavirus deaths is horrendous, and the BBC announce it as that. They say Spain has announced there have been 10,000 coronavirus deaths since the start of the year. But what they don't say is that every year in Spain, 500,000 people die. This has gone up massively since, I think, 2012 because of the ageing population. And as a result, it's clambered from about 400,000 to 500,000 people a year. Now, 500,000 people a year is 250,000 people in half a year or 125,000 people in 3 months. So is that 10,000 that have died in these 3 months through coronavirus that huge compared to the 125,000 who die normally in 3 months? And also, how many of those 10,000 are part of that 125,000? They don't tell us, by the way, the 10,000 that died in the 3 months are actually part of the 125,000, and they certainly don't tell us if actually in these 3 months only 110,000 people died in Spain, so the death toll has actually dropped and not raised. By not telling us these crucial details and by emphasising things like 10,000 people died in Spain in 3 months, they make it worse and increase the panic-demic. Anyway, I wanted to discuss Eurovision. I ran the Eurovision Song Contest for the BBC back in the 1990s. I started in 1995, worked on it even harder in 1996, and ended up winning it in 1997. There behind me, you'll see the Eurovision flag, the UK flag that I was waving during that year when Katrina and the Waves won it for the UK, and we had more 12 points, 12 points than any other country in ratio to all the other votes. But what people don't realise is incredible hard work it took to get to there. Every year, and the first year we've had a great entry called Love City Groove, and I was delighted by that because not only was it a real hit, it made the top 10 in Great Britain, and it was a hit all over the world, but also it was a mixed race, so it brought lots of people of different skin colours into interest in Eurovision. It was the most played track on Kiss FM, which was a very credible rock and soul station in London at the time. And also it brought a lot of the young people who completely lost interest in Eurovision into the Eurovision thing. So I was very, very pleased by that. The year after was, I thought, the best ever entry for Eurovision, which was Ooh, Ah, Just a Little Bit by Gina G. And it only came 8th in the contest. I was devastated. And I actually resigned my role as producer of the whole thing because I thought, if I can't win with that, I can't win with anything. To me, it was the perfect Eurovision entry. I went to number 1 all over the world. It was the biggest selling hit come out of Eurovision for ages and ages. But the BBC persuaded me to stay on, so I really worked hard for the third year, and we did win with Katrina and the Waves and Love Shine a Light. But looking at Eurovision, and I said in my diary a few days ago, I was furious that they cancelled it, just as I'm furious they cancelled Euro 2020. Oh, this was my Euro shirt for the last time I went to the Euros, by the way. That's why I'm wearing it. But I think they're mad, and I do know about Eurovision entertainment. Now, if I was the Eurovision people now, if I was the EBU, the European Broadcast Union, or the BBC, I would still have Eurovision. I'd have it as a Eurovision that didn't have an audience and didn't have a huge crowd. Everybody stayed at home, you played the videos, and I think actually, hopefully, a friend of mine, I've made this suggestion, will do that on the day of Eurovision, which I think was May the 16th or something, was that on that Saturday anyway, to have the OUEU, the official, unofficial Eurovision 2020, or let's say the online unofficial Eurovision 2020. OUEU 2020. It sounds quite good, doesn't it? Anyway, I'd have that. Start at 7 o'clock. Play all the videos from, I don't know how many countries there are, but say about 40, because you don't have semi-finals, of course, this year. So you'd have to have all the entries in there. Play the videos. Let that run with some commentary and various stuff that could be easily done at a small studio or at home by people or whatever. Open the phone lines and the online voting at 9 o'clock. After you've done a sort of a run through of all the titles of, say, 20 or 30 seconds of each, all in a bed with the different numbers for people to call and the different ways they can vote for it. Let it have an hour, and then at 10 o'clock, announce the votes and the results, which always, by the way, is far and away the most popular part. Nobody cares about Eurovision. Everyone cares about the voting and who wins at the end. They have parties and everything else. And you rattle it through, and like everyone gets 1 minute. At number 40 is Croatia with 27,000 blah, 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 blah. At number 27 is Bulgaria with 9,427,000. And the number one is at the end of the hour, and you get a great online show. And by the way, I bet you several of the broadcasters would take it and broadcast it, so it would be online as well. Instead of what the BBC do, stupid BBC, who have no imagination at all, they're putting on a show with bits of all the old Eurovisions in, thinking that people adore all the camp and carry on of Eurovision. They never quite understood. People only care about the voting. It's a competition. That's what's fun. That's what everybody loves. Anyway, I do that, and I put it all online and perhaps on TV. I'd link up with someone called YouTube officially. I'd get all the permissions and everything else, and it would be a huge success. Why doesn't somebody do that? Probably they will now. You're welcome, by the way. I don't want a royalty. I don't need payment. I'm filthy fucking rich anyway. But do that, and do that with all the other things as well. Of course, you've got to adapt sporting events, so on, so there's no crowds. It's behind closed doors. But actually, the Grand National, which was a virtual Grand National yesterday, worked very well. Use the same kind of imagination for all these other events. The world has gone crazy. Nobody has imagination anymore. Nobody has common sense anymore. I despair. This has been my day 13 of the of the stupid Geriatric 1944 diaries, and tomorrow will be day 14.